morning, Zimbabwe, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily. This morning, I am so excited because the Vendors Initiative for Social and Economic Transformation are launching an interesting program, the Informal Economy Women's Hub. And we are going to talk more about why it's important for us to launch this particular hub and in this particular season. As you know, our economy is highly informalized, and because it is highly informalized, we also see the gendered nature of abuse and of economic transformation taking place. So we want to understand where the women's place is when it comes to economic development, and in particular in our circumstances as informal traders, as vendors. You know, you are selling it to your corner, but what systems are in place to allow you to grow and flourish in the place that you're in? So I'm excited to introduce to you my panel of guests today, and I will allow them individually to introduce themselves before I open the platform for them to make representations. I'm excited because I have Samuel Wadzai, who is the director for Viset, amongst us. We also have board members for Viset and different organizations on the platform just to help us unpack this particular program. Welcome to the program, Director Samuel.
Good morning, Yvonne, and good morning, viewers and listeners.
Thank you so much. Welcome, Janet. Kindly, Samuel, maybe you can fully introduce yourself to our viewers before I give it over to our panelists.
Okay, thank you so much, Yvonne. My name is Samuel Wadzai. I'm the Executive Director of the Vendors Initiative for Social and Economic Transformation, Viset.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. My name is Janet Zhou. I work with the Zimbabwe Coalition on Data and Development as the Executive Director. It's great to be here. And Viset is one of our very strong partners and members within the coalition for the struggle for social and economic justice. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Janet. Over to you, Barbara.
Thank you very much. My name is Barbara Nyanka-Iri. I am the Executive Director of Deaf Zimbabwe Trust. Our trust is inclusive development, where we leave no one behind. Men and women, children, young people with disabilities also included in all development processes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbara. Over to you, Margaret. Margaret, you may want to unmute your mic.
Thank you very much.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Margaret Mutambi. I am with Economic Justice Project, an organization that is focused on social and economic rights for young. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret, coming through from EJWP. Today, we want to talk social and economic transformation, in particular for women. So I'm going to allow for our presenters to come through with their presentations. And I'm going to start with you, Janet, because we understand that women constitute a great majority in the informal economy, and they are the ones normally occupying the lower echelons of the Zimbabwean economy. Corruption being one of the challenges affecting their operations, and also the disproportionate, application of the rule of law. Now, given the manner we see policing being carried out by city councils and ZRP, are these people trained in gender sensitivity? Are these people trained in gender sensitivity when they carry out their blitz against women informal traders? Over to you, Janet. You may want to unmute the mic.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for this opportunity, and thank you, Viset, for launching this this hub for women who are in the informal sector. And it is important, definitely, I'm sure, representing this segment of the informal sector to really understand the dynamics. And as you have put it rightly, women constitute the majority of informal traders across the country. And this is more like also just at a very global level. And what it therefore means is that in the incidences and cases where there is corruption, which, by the way, manifests in different ways, directly, indirectly, and we know the main one that also affects women is the gendered currency of corruption, which is sex. So women suffer then the greatest corruption risk when it comes to how they encounter those enforce laws. And as we know, informal trade in Zimbabwe is very much criminalized by the archaic bylaws that do not take into account the context that we are in, which indicates that our informal sector is actually the economy that is operating in Zimbabwe. Therefore, whenever they are enforcing laws, what therefore happens, because then the greater majority are the women, they are at a greater risk of facing different kinds of corruption, either in monetary exchange or, like I've said, in the gendered currency of corruption, which is sex. So, and like I said, that the laws that are being enforced are archaic. They don't respond to our context. Therefore, they are very gender blind in terms of the subtle and also the most overt kinds of harassment and corruption that we see affecting women in the informal sector.
That is quite sad that women have to bear the brunt, in spite of the fact that they are the most represented in terms of the informal sector. Now, when we look at those aspects, Janet, we understand that there's a lot happening in the background, and we want to understand the other forms of corruption that women face in the informal sector.
Thank you, Yvonne. So, like I indicated, I think what we see women face in the informal sector really is reflective of the society in which we live in, and which gives us the different roles that we play, thereby increasing the risks of women to face all forms and kinds of corruption. And I think we still need to really go into deep research in terms of understanding how women are encountering corruption at various levels, at the local authority level, but also at the national level, maybe as they try to formalize their businesses. But we know that in Zimbabwe, the main one happens as well with the money exchange, where really there is extortion of money if maybe one is caught by those that are enforcing the laws, or the law enforcement agents, either is the Zimbabwe Republic Police or is the municipality police. Women are more susceptible to paying, a bribe, just not to lose, for example, their wares or their vegetables and the like. Then there is the most, common one as well amongst women, like I've said, that way they have to give in to sexual advancement by those that are policing or enforcing the laws. And I think it has been called the sextortion that we have heard about. In this case, it's either those that are policing actually demand for it, or the women themselves, as they find themselves in the vulnerable position of losing maybe their merchandise or whatever they are selling, they then have to offer to be more like they're giving it or volunteering. But if you look at it, it's really because of the undue influence or the pressure in the duress that they will be facing at that particular point in time. Then there is also, so that is at the level of, at a very vertical level, where it's with authorities and they have to pay money, or they have to pay using sex. But there is another as well, the horizontal one, with their male counterparts, which I think is also very rampant, maybe as they trade in either monetary or as well, once again, sex, so that maybe they get the better spot. We know of the issue of the land barons. So these tolls and better spots, they're likely to be taken by males. So in some instances, I think it also manifests horizontally, where amongst their fellows who are males, they have to, or powerful women even, they have to give, to part with money or to give sex so that they can get those sports that are more marketable or have more people, say, passing through, because we're talking, for example, about vendors in this instance. So those are mainly some of the challenges that are faced, and they are vertical when they face the authorities, and because it's informal, it's not regularized, anything happens in there, and it's an issue of survival. So they face the vertical corruption, but there's also the issue of horizontal corruption amongst the informal traders, which definitely affects women and touches on women more maybe than their male counterparts.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Janet. I'll come back to look at the legal framework that we have. But for now, I'm going to turn to Barbara Nyangairi, as you are coming through representing the Deaf Zimbabwe Trust. Now, we understand that these are challenges, as explained by Janet, that are faced by women in the informal sector as such. Oh, by the way, thank you so much. I want to welcome Miss Rosemary Mudzamiri. Her network was dropping earlier on. She is coming through as the vice chairperson of the board of Viset, the Vendors Initiative for Social and Economic Transformation. Welcome, ma'am. Rosemary, welcome. May you unmute your microphone, please, and say hello to our viewers who are joining us on this program. All right, we seem to be failing to connect to her, but we'll continue to wait upon her to join us so that we can have more of this conversation. So back to you, Barbara. Now, as has been highlighted, there are challenges that women face just because they are women. Now, what challenges do women living with disabilities face in their day-to-day existence in the informal economy?
Thank you very much. This is an exciting discussion that we are having. As Janet has already spoken about the challenges that women face in the informal sector generally, women with disabilities are doubly vulnerable to all forms of abuse, to the challenges that she has. But there are specific challenges that faced by women with disabilities. So, for example, I think they are overrepresented in the informal sector because of lack of access to education, and because of our currently, if you are to look at access to education for persons with disabilities, it's 90% of children with disabilities are not in school, which then translates to adults who are illiterate and have not been able to access a basic education. And that means that even when they are in the informal sector, they are at a disadvantage. Imagine somebody who has done, maybe they've gone up to O-level and failed, and someone who did not even access their basic education. So there's huge disparities there in terms of literacy, and therefore their ability to understand and deal with issues. The next issue that we look at now is they are then overrepresented on the lower rung of the informal sector as petty vendors in most cases, where they are selling small wares, and there is a general inability to upscale and move on to formalize their businesses because of the challenges of education, the inability to understand systems that comes as a result of their education, lack of education. The next thing that we see is the lack of support. While other women and men in the informal sector are able to experience and access support through associations, women with disabilities then face physical, communication, and attitudinal barriers, just general negative attitudes. If I tell you that some of the things that persons without disabilities say about people with disabilities, you would be amazed. Most of that is just negative attitudes that have no basis anyway. So those barriers now affect their ability to even engage and interact with the structures of the informal sector that can actually promote and help them to rise up from the informal sector to the formal sector. And so Janet has already spoken about the running battles between city authorities and the police and women who are in the informal sector. We have had a number of cases where we had to go to the central police station to rescue women with disabilities who've been whose wares have been taken and who've been held there. A number of times, the issue of lack of communication, and at times just being told that you are pretending to be deaf for some of them. So those are real issues that they are facing. You look at social protection, the lack of social protection. COVID-19 really exposed our weak social protection system, because at that point they were not working and there was no way to access any support. And if it's support that's going to be accessed through membership with the informal sector structures, they are mostly not members of those structures and they may not be able to access information. We also saw the issue of digital poverty. Most persons with disabilities do not have access to digital hardware that would allow them to actually engage. And if most of them are using Kambudzi phone, and how do you then ensure that they have access to information? If Viset, for example, does a broadcast of information to them, they were not able to access any of that. And that compromised their, security, mostly during the COVID-19 era, especially in the strict lockdowns where they were not able to function. And now, even in employment within the informal sector itself, women with disabilities are not really seen as good labor. I would say that in courts, because they're seen as unproductive. And this is the case mostly for women with intellectual disabilities and those with physical disabilities, which creates a barrier to even entering the sector. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
I mean, just you explaining there shows the extent to which women with disabilities face challenges on a day-to-day basis. Now, do we have what are the current existing pieces of legislation that caters for the needs of people living with disabilities? Barbara.
We have a very comprehensive and robust legal framework in our country. If you look at our Disabled Persons Act, even though it's outdated, 1992, but if used, it would, if implemented, it would change the lives of persons with disabilities. Because when you look at that piece of legislation, it speaks to issues of inclusion, it speaks to issues of reasonable accommodations, it also speaks to issues of building adjustments. Because right now, you would be surprised that buildings continue to be constructed that are not accessible to persons with physical disabilities. So those are some of the issues. But we also have a very progressive constitution, like the 2013 constitution, which provides for a number of sections for persons with disabilities. And currently, we've just introduced the National Disability Policy, which is a very good document. The challenge that we have as a nation is implementation. So we may have all these good laws, but if we don't use them, they are just that, good laws. And they are not going to make a difference in the lives of the people that they should impact. So those are the challenges that we face. But we do have a good legal framework that actually provides progressive and reasonable, accommodations. For example, sign language is one of the provisions that's there in our constitution. But how many times have you heard persons with disabilities, especially those that are deaf, fighting for access to sign language or if you are to go to register, if you want to pay your licenses, there's no sign language interpreters. There's no provision that says that I am deaf and I need an interpreter. And you're actually told, okay, today we don't have one, but if you make an appointment for this day, we'll have an interpreter ready for you. So it's like they're groping in the dark without the reasonable accommodations that would make it easier for them to function. Even when you look at the complexity of these bylaws and things like that, they are written in such a way that it's so difficult for persons with disabilities, who I said earlier on are illiterate, to actually understand.
Right.
And therefore, we need simplified information. The Constitution provides for that, but do we have it on the ground? So we do have good laws, but we suffer with implementation of those laws.
Right, we have good laws, but we suffer implementation of those laws. Now, I want to come to Madam Margaret there. We need to begin to eradicate gender-based violence in the informal sector. Now, from your perspective, what is the environment that female traders are operating in the informal economy from your perspective?
Thank you very much. I just want to check if you guys can hear me. I was having serious network challenges before I can proceed. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you. Maybe if you can try to speak up a little bit so that we are very clear, but we can hear you.
Okay. I hope then that makes it better. So first and foremost, I would like to congratulate Viset for launching this hub. I think this is just an acknowledgement that the informal economy is not homogeneous, and to also acknowledge that women, they dominate the sector, with reports that about 67% of it are women, and they are disproportionately affected by the operational environment. So congratulations there, Samuel, and your team. So coming back to your question in terms of my understanding of the environment of the informal sector is that it is highly characterized by gender-based violence. We have seen the coming of COVID-19 has not made anything better, because we have seen a lot of people coming from the informal sector. They've been laid off, and they are now from the formal sector to the informal sector, which means that the numbers in the informal economy are increasing, and there is limited operational space. And also in terms of the people that you are targeting, your customers, they've reduced in numbers due to the ongoing lockdowns. So the space has really become unsafe. And perhaps I'll also just speak to structural and systemic challenges that are faced by women, with specific focus on gender-based violence, and also highlight the main perpetrators of violence in the informal economy. The first perpetrator of violence, according to my own analysis and observation, is the state. When we are talking about the state, we are talking about the security forces. The way that they just come into the sector, beat up people, always chasing people. They don't even care whether they have children. With female informal traders, sometimes they have to go with their children to their selling spaces, because there is no one that they can leave the child with, and also because the unbalanced allocation of roles within the household. So we have seen the state, the heavy-handedness. We've seen the use of brutal force. And then also the public, we the consumers of the products of informal traders, sometimes we are when we're negotiating for low prices, we end up just being very loud and manipulative, and sometimes refusing to pay the full amounts, which also accumulates to gender-based violence. And then fellow workers, Janet said something about horizontal. When your fellow workers, they look at you as a woman in terms of power, you are seen, perceived as an inferior human being. So there is also just the abuse from fellow workers, male and sometimes even female. And also we have household violence, gender-based violence back at home. Sometimes you didn't manage to sell your wares on time. You've had to stay perhaps into the evening to even maybe get enough to get back home, and you get home late. We know that sometimes women just get beaten for coming home late and for failing to sell, for not bringing money at home. And then there are other criminal elements, thieves, we have street gangs. They come. I witnessed an old lady being stripped of her wares by a group of street kids. We also have space barons. They come in there. They're capitalizing from the space. And the other powerful vested interests, the ones that are capital centered, that are feeling that informal traders are taking their share of the market, a fair share of their market. So I'm sorry, I will list the forms of violence that I have written. Yeah, if they were highlighted and I wasn't yet on the platform, so you'll just forgive me. There is physical abuse. Obviously, from the state, we have seen that they use button sticks, and they sometimes just arrest them without clear charges. And because there are people who are aware of some of these legal provisions, they suffer. I heard Jenny talking about sextortion, use of bribes to be released or to be exonerated by the security forces. We have also seen that physically amongst themselves they fight for prime space, between other colleagues. Sometimes there's a corner where there are a lot of passerbys, and then increasing the chances of your sales. So there's that form of violence. And then we also have verbal abuse, obviously emotional abuse. There's use of threats and violence sometimes, and sometimes there's even rape. It gets even to rape of female informal traders, theft of their wares, and the extreme is murder. We have also seen demolitions and violent evictions recently by the council. We have seen them, and they really amount to gender-based violence, because we know that women are disproportionately affected. The use of force. So really, in terms of the operational environment, it's bad. Their workspace is unsafe, and it's just a battle, but it's a battle for survival. They have no choice. They have to be in the space for their next meal, and they are being fought. There is a cat and mouse. This going on, but still, because we are desperate, there is no option. We still find ourselves in this unsafe space, making them very vulnerable despite the low income. So the environment is crazy, and I think really based on what I've just said, then that poses a serious reason for the establishment of a specific hub that focuses on the issues that affect women, as Viset has done.
Still on you, Margaret, do you feel that the 2013 constitution, which does advocate for gender equity, has made it different for the lot of women in the informal sector with regards to gender-based violence?
So my sentiments are the same as Barbara's sentiments, to say that we have a very progressive constitution, which some people are calling transformative constitution, with very good provisions. We have Section 17, which is dedicated to gender and urges the state to promote full participation of women in all areas of life. We also have Section 8. I think Section 8 speaks more on gender-based violence. It talks about the rights of women and highlights the provision of equal opportunities in political, social, and economic activities across all sectors. We have Section 85 with Section 245, which promulgated the establishment of the Gender Commission. So in terms of its provisions, the Constitution has tried to capture even some of those provisions that are regional, the conventions. We are and of the CIJO, and then we have the Maputo Protocol, and then we have the SADC Protocol. In terms of the legal framework, I think we are okay in terms of its provision. But I think the challenge there is what Barbara says, that there is lack of political will to implement and to enforce. And also amongst ourselves as informal economy stakeholders, a lack of information to know about these provisions so that we can then demand our rights, demand what is due to us as provided by the law. So the law is comprehensive, but the enforcement and the political will to implement is what is the challenge.
Rather sad that we do have a progressive constitution, but that same constitution is not doing much. There is no political will to ensure that the provisions are adhered to. Now, thank you so much, Margaret. I'm going to come back to you again at a later stage. I want to cross over to our Viset board vice chairperson. Rosemary, we want to look at women in the informal economy and their issues to do with sexual reproductive health, birth control, etc. Now, would you say female vendors have control over their reproductive health? You may want to unmute yourself so that we can hear you.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Director. You may want to actually fully introduce
yourself.
yourself.
My director. And then, toda kupfuurira mberi ndichitaura nezvewomen's hub launch.
Sorry, Director, you may want to unmute, you may want to mute the other device that's playing so that we can hear you well.
And then panyaya yamataura yefemale reproductive in the vending site. Inyaya inorwadza zvikuru. Chokutanga, tine varume vatinoti vana baba kudzimba kwatinogara. And then chinhu chokutanga chinorwadza ndechekuti murume anogona kuti anoda vana 6 kana 7 kana vaanongonzwa kuda kukuudza mumba. Iwewe saamai unogona kusava neraiti yokuramba zvaari kutaura nokuti uri pasi pake mumba imomo. But at the same time, uri vendor ndiwe unotakura mutoro wese wokushandira mhuri iyoyo. Saka unoona kuti unorwadziwa kuviri, unorwadziwa kutakura nhumbu. Baba vachiramba family planning, all the types dzema family planning vanogona kukurambira vachiti ndiri kuda vana. Iwewe unenge uchitakura dumbu, uku uri kutakura tswanda kuenda kumbare kunohodha matomatoes, uchienda kunotengesa. Sevenda tinorarama hand to mouth. Dei rawatengesa iroro ndoro unowana kadiki diki kauchadya kauchasupplya mhuri yose kubatanidza newe. Tiri ipapo panoita challenge hombe yokuti vana vakawanda mumba, kuendesa vana ivavo kuchikoro kunonetsa. Mwana anogona kutadza kuricha standard yaanoda pazvidzidzo zvake. Unogona kuendesa mwana up to grade 7 or form 2 or form 4, but mwana haana achievement yakakwana pazvidzidzo zvake. Mumwe mwana anenge achitogona zvokuti anofanirwa kunge achisvika kuuniversity. Mwana iye agozokuzorodza kutakura tswanda uchienda kumbare. Asi nechikonzero une zvakawanda zvakakukomberedza. Iye ari kuda kuenda kuuniversity, kune mumwe anoda kuenda kuform 3, kune mumwe anoda kuita grade 6, kune mumwe anoda kuenda kuECD. Une nhumbu apa tswanda ndiye iri kukupa chokudya mukati memba imomo. Saka unozoona kuti at the end of the day vana ivava ukwanise kuramba uchivaendesa kuchikoro. Chaunenge wakutozoita mwana asvika form 4 unogona kutomudzidzisa basa rauri kuita, otouya pasaidi newe, otomutsvagira pokutengesera, akutokujoina kutengesa, of which that's very bad. Tiri ipapo paunenge wakatakura nhumbu ipapo, unorwadziwa nenyaya yokuti hauna maternity leave. Hapana pauchazonzi venda iri ngarimboenda paleave. Ukaenda kuleave for 3 months, like vanoshanda mamwe mabasa okuti unoendeswa kuleave. Kana uchishanda mugovernment une time yaunonzi this time frame makufanirwa kuchizorora. Munoprepare zvekuti kusvikira pamunozobatsirwa, then muchagara futi some months musati madzoka kubasa. Isusu semavhenda hauna nguva iyoyo. Ukatakura nhumbu yako kubva ichibata kusvikira musi waunosununguka 24/7 uri pabasa. Une tswanda yako, uri kumhanyidzana nemapurisa, uku dumbu riri uko. Hauna kana stop yokuti unomboti ndambozorora nhasi. Even uri ipapo paunorwara hauna medical yokuti unonoshandisa kuhospital, hauna zvakadaro zvakafanana nezvinowana vamwe vanenge vachishanda mamwe mabasa. Unoshingirira usina kana anokupa tablet rachona rokunwa. Ukati uende kukliniki kunenge kuchidedzera mari yausitorina iwewe wacho. Nokuti mari yaunayo ndiyo kungokwanisa kuti iwewe udye nemhuri yaunayo mudye makadaro. Uri ipapo pakutakura dumbu kwaunenge uchiita baba vachiti ndinoda vamwe vana mumba. Panoda preparation. Papreparation panorwadza. Chii chinorwadza papreparation? Unopedzisira wakuti mwana uye wawakarumura unomuchengetedzera tuhembe twake tuye twawakambomushandisira pauchechi. Wotobatanidza netushoma shoma twaunozongonhonga-nhongawo kuti mwana ari mudumbu paanobuda agopfeka. Kurwadziwa ikoko kunenge kuchiita munhukadzi tiri ipapo. Saka unozoona kuti kukura kunoita vana vako vanokura vachitambudzika. Iwe wacho uri kutambudzika. Uchitengesa uri muinformal economy inorwadza semudzimai, unotambudzika kumba, baba vanenge vachikudza zvavanoda, unotambudzika pakuti havadi family planning, unotambudzika pakukudza vana vachona vese kuti vakure, unotambudzika mwoyo wako kuti vana vako vaheve knowledge yavanoda muupenyu hwavo. Zvese izvozvo zvinorwadza mudzimai ari muvending economy.
Mataura mashoko.
Ipapo chimwe chinhu chinorwadza futi. Unozoona kuti tine police enforcement anoti iwewe uri kutengesa wakagara une mwana wawakarumura, maybe warumura mwana iyeye after angoyamwa 1 year akagara pasaidi apa mwana iyeye, iwewe une dumbu apa wakaronga matomatoes. Police ikauya haitarise situation yako. Kunge uine situation yakadaro mustreet hakuzi kuda, hauna kuzvipira here kuti regedzai ndiende ndichengete vana ava nesosi yokuti ndinotengesa than kuenda kubhawa. Saka mupurisa paanosvika pauri haatarise zvakakukomberedza kuti une kamwana kacheche kana kuti iwe wakazvitakura. Anongosvika achikuharasa iwe nemwana plus dumbu rako pamwe chete. Saka zvinorwadza. Ndatenda.
Sorry, I was on mute, but ndandiri kuti mashoko makukutu amataura Rosemary Mudzamiri ekuti madzimai ari kusanganikwa nema-problems akasiyana-siyana ekuti iye anenge ane kamwana kadiki oti nhumbu oti hondo yemapurisa inenge ichiuya as well in such situation. Now I want to find out from you what your recommendation would be to government in order to protect the rights of women's reproductive health. Nekuti tikatarisa munguva yeCovid imomomo madzimai mazhinji akatadza kuita access contraceptives all the sexual reproductive health services dzaunosowana kuma-clinics. So what would you recommend government do in order to protect these rights of women? You may want to unmute your mic as well.
Ndatenda hangu. Regedzai nditi government tine chikumbiro chokuti health services ngaikwanisewo kupinda kuvending, kumadzimai evending. Kana yapinda kumadzimai evending, inopinda ine zvainazvo zvokuti inogona kutibatsira nazvo. One, vanogona kutipa knowledge. Chokutanga, vakatipa knowledge, vopinda street by street, vachitora kana madzimai 4, kana 5, kana even 10 ari street, and then ivo vapa knowledge. Kana vapa knowledge, after that, ngavaite access yokutaura futhi department rekuti tiwane mabasa ari nane. Vanogona kutipawo mabasa ari nane like ma-projects. Vakatiisa muma-projects zvinogona kutibatsira kuti dzimwe hondo dzinotiwira sana mai tiri panguva yekuzvitakura kana yokuyamwisa tinogona kusapinda madziri. Why ndichidaro? Sana mai kana uchiyamwisa like zvandambotaura zviyezviyezvi unosangana even nema-diseases akawanda kumwana wako ari mustreet. Saka tikange taiswa mumapoka ema-projects zvinogona kundibatsira kuti ndinogona kusiya mwana kumba for 30 minutes ndonofidha huku then ndodzoka ndononesa mwana wangu. Even asi mwana chete anenge ari right, kune mumwe anenge ari disabled. You find kuti mwana iyeye kana health ikasapindira, mwana anenge achida wheelchair, anoda zvakakwana zvemwana ari mu-disabled. Anoda kuendeswa kuzvikoro zvokuti isusu we cannot manage, we cannot afford kuendesa vana vari disabled kuzvikoro zvinodhura zvokuti mwana anogona kugadzirwa zvakanaka. Saka health ikapinda, kana yapinda yakaatachana negovernment, zvinotibatsira kuti tinozikanwawo kuti tiriko pasa apa kugrassroots. Kune vanhu vakadaro vanodawo maintenance inobvawo kugovernment, sokuti even pacensus tinoverengwa 1. Saka papi patinozotadza kuzikanwa kuti tiriko, asi tichimbozikanwa pacensus kuti kune munhu ari pasi anonzi Rosemary Mudzamiri and then ane mhuri 7 vana plus murume. Ndatenda zvangu.
Thank you so much, Vice Chair, for that contribution. Now, I want to come back to you, Janet, and my question to you is basically on the recommendations, because we do have like has been said by other speakers earlier, we do have the legal framework, but this existing framework does not seem to do much in protecting women operating in the informal sector. What do you recommend? What is your recommendation of what should be done to protect women in the informal sector?
Yes. Thank you very much, Yvonne. And I think as you had from across the presenters representing persons with disabilities and particularly women in the informal sector, the different manifestations and the cases in which women suffer violence, the different kinds of violence in the informal sector. And what we're talking about here is basically violence. I think that is exactly what we have to term it. That manifests as gender-based violence, that manifests in the form of corruption, and the like. So I think the big question is that we have the laws, we have the policies, even the anti-corruption policy strategy, we have the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission and all sorts. But I think for us to address the real challenges that we're facing is that we don't have to shy away from the issue of gender equality in all this. And we have to be addressing the root causes of all these inequalities, the poverty that we've spoken about, lack of access to health services, to education, and the like that we have had. So I think we need to be working to reduce gender inequalities and stereotypes that manifested the very broad societal levels, and the discrimination against women that then pose the many risks that we have spoken about. And this goes on to having us talk about gender-sensitive anti-corruption programming for our government itself, but also for the informal sector, so that we break the corrupt power structures that impede the work of women in the informal sector. So there are powerful and power structures within the informal sector that are exacerbating the different violence and corruption and the inequalities that we are talking about. And we need to be talking about anti-corruption strategies to deal with that issue. But I also wanted to talk about regulation. I think we've spoken about this over a long time. We have a constitution, we have all these laws that we're talking about. But the informal sector remains regulated by archaic laws and municipal laws. And the government has not really taken strides to recognize that informal trade or informal work is actually work, so that when regulated and formalized in a way, they can then get the different benefits that come with having formalized businesses. So and even this sustainable development goals have recognized the issue of regulation and formalization of the informal sector. SDG 8.3, if you go on the 0.3, you will see that we need to be talking about formalization, because in that way, some of, for example, the corruption that he was talking about, where then one has to pay a bribe and the like, someone just regularizes their operations, and they will bypass the many other hurdles that they have to face in order to be able to operate or to access finances or to access certain services from the local authorities. I think we also lack, local authority anti-corruption policies that are robust and gender sensitive. I think I just want to share in this meeting about our discovery a year ago that Harare City Council actually didn't have an anti-corruption policy. And you can imagine, we haven't done a study to see how many we have, but I can give you one where we gave technical services, including with Viset, because we sit in the Budget Advisory Committee of the Harare City Council. And so you can already see that there is no, commitment to dealing with the issues of corruption at the very local level. So I think we need to be talking about anti-corruption policies that are gender sensitive, that look at the context and also within the context of the informal sector. So I think that is a big issue. Then finally, I think we definitely need an assertive civil society. And I think we have congratulated Viset for launching this hub. This is one big thing that we need. We need an assertive civil society that's talking to these issues of implementation, enforcement of laws that are progressive, that is talking about repealing and abolishing of laws that are archaic, repressive, and retrogressive in terms of where we are going with the informal sector. We need an assertive civil society that also, creates platforms that are victim-friendly, victim-centered, to be able to talk about, for example, a gender-sensitive whistleblowers protection system, so that women, because they'll be reporting powerful structures, like I indicated, they are able to report the different kinds of violence, corruption, and the like that they are facing, or harassment that they are facing when they are doing their trade. So I'm hopeful that this is kind of the assertiveness that we're talking about when we are having this hub being launched, to look at the different, very practical issues that women in the informal sector are facing, because at the end of the day, what we want to see is a recognition of informal sector as work, as decent work that has to be productive for women, and not only an issue of survival, but actually work that is decent, that is productive, and that can take care of their families, that can take care of their needs. I think women at the moment, they continue to carry the burden just on their own, and the burden is heavy on them. And in the end, I think there are subtleties in terms of them blaming themselves for the situations that they find themselves in, and we need to extricate them from that that kind of a situation that they find themselves in. So I think we need to be doing a lot around raising awareness, being assertive, but also tackling head-on the policy and the legal issues that continue to bedevil or to actually increase the violence that we continue to see in the informal sector. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Janet. So thank you so much. You are watching the Viset Informal Economy Women's Hub launch, where the hub seeks to champion the development of an inclusive gender policy for informal economy, sexual reproductive rights and health for informal female traders, eradication of gender-based violence in the informal economy, as well as tackling gendered corruption in the informal economy. So we have experts in the different fields. Janet coming through from ZimCode. We have Barbara Nyangairi coming in from the Dev Zimbabwe Trust. We do have the Viset board chairperson, Rosemary Mudzamiri, giving us an overview of the sexual, reproductive and health situations in the informal sector, targeting women, as well as Margaret Mutsambi, the executive director of EJWP, tackling the different aspects of why this hub is being formed. We also do have the director for Viset coming through and supporting the female leaders in the different areas to make sure this launch is a success. Now, Margaret, we are launching this hub, and as has been highlighted, we want to eradicate the issue of gender-based violence in the informal sector. Now, looking at the rise in the cases of gender-based violence, what do you think can be done to curb these, in particular the treatment meted out to our female vendors and traders by municipal authorities?
Thank you very much. I wanted to acknowledge Rosemary in the room. Every time she speaks, it brings us back to the core issues that informal traders encounter. So, but in terms of the recommendations, I think we need to upgrade the city bylaws. We need to ensure that the system acknowledges the validity of informal work, acknowledge it as work, and to begin to make their workspace, the work environment, secure and safe for all, including, of course, especially for women. This would also include issues of providing adequate infrastructure. Some of the reasons that women in the informal economy get abused is just because there are no toilets, and they use the next shop. They negotiate with the owner of the next shop to use their toilet, and sometimes the owner of the next shop just gets interested in them, or they have an opportunity to negotiate for a casual relationship, whatever it is. So then that just makes them vulnerable. So I would think that the issue of infrastructure provision is primary in terms of reducing gender-based violence. And I also think the issue of unionizing, the issue of organizing, like Viset is doing. They have mobilized informal traders, and they are helping them regain their power to demand, for instance, safety, to demand their security, socioeconomic justice, and to speak, to provide the safe platforms where they can then demand the government to implement the constitution so that they can feel safe. Recently, we're talking about the freedom of profession, talking about section 64. So I think unionizing will then also address a lot of the other challenges that have to do with the operations of the space, with the members of the informal economy accessing affordable, and accessing legal help and making it affordable. So I think the issue of organizing is very critical in terms of tackling gender-based violence. There is also need to reduce the bureaucracies in acquiring operational licenses, because some of the reasons why we have sextortion is because people just want to they just want to work. They just want to operate at whatever cost. They can even give whatever they have, because they don't have the money. They can then give their bodies. They are vulnerable and they need the money. So we need, and sometimes the bureaucracy nature of these processes is such that they don't even actually have the information of how do I acquire an operational license. So you have to continue paying bribes. You have to continue giving that person sex so that you continue to operationalize. So there is need to reduce the bureaucracies and share information about getting these licenses. I also just believe that there is need to depoliticize the informal economy. It has been used for political patronage for a very long time. If you don't belong to this party, then people can just come, they can violate you, they can chase you away. Structures could be demolished because you are not, you don't have patronage to a certain political party. So I think there is need to depoliticize the informal economy, and then continue organizing and demanding the constitutional provisions that we have. And I like the issue of the gender policy, but I would also just want to encourage Viset, and to consider that when, for example, when they produce a model law, that they just mainstream these issues that have become a part of this very relevant hub, to just mainstream them in every other document and strategy that they design as an institution. I think I would end here.
Right. Thank you so much, Margaret. And Barbara, over to you. How do we create an inclusive legal framework that supports the informal sector? Okay, I think we've lost Barbara there, right? So this is the launch of the Viset Informal Economy Women's Hub, and I just want, as we round up this conversation, I just want each one of you, Janet, Margaret, Rosemary, to just come in. No, actually, Janet and Margaret, I want you to say something about this particular launch. Why is it important, and how will you stand with Viset in order to make sure that this informal economy women's hub becomes a force to reckon with? Because remember, we are talking about coming up with legal frameworks that are inclusive. We want to tackle issues to do with gendered corruption in the informal sector. Janet, you spoke about anti-corruption mechanisms that are non-existent in many of our formal structures of governance. Now, as we launch this particular hub, we would want to just get these solidarity messages from you. I'll start with you, Janet, then go to Margaret before I hand it over to Rosemary.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. And as I indicated, I think this is, I'm taking this as a safe space that Viset is creating for women in the informal sector to discuss the different challenges that they are facing in their day-to-day work. I am taking it as a space for solutions in terms of how they're going to tackle the different challenges that they are facing. I'm also very excited about the idea of, detangling the word woman or female, which is normally seen as a very monolithic kind of a person who is a woman is a woman, and no one really goes to an extent of disaggregating it in the different forms that women, or the different spaces that women are sitting. But I'm seeing this hub as an opportunity for different women in their different roles, in their different appearance and abilities, participating and sharing their challenges. We see women with disabilities, those that are affected by corruption, the sexual health and reproductive rights, and the like. All these issues coming in terms of how they are affecting them, and I think it moves us from our normally very constricted and narrow narrative in terms of how we view women in the different trades that they are in, or in the different workspaces that they are in, or in society, to a position where we want to really look at them in the different challenges that they are facing, so that we come up with solutions that address the different challenges that are faced. So I'm just hopeful that this is going to be that information hub. It's going to be that solidarity hub for women who are facing different challenges. I'm also hoping that it's going to be a space for knowledge sharing and exchanging of experiences, where then solutions are birthed or incubated that will be targeted at policymakers, but that will also be targeted at the informal traders themselves, in terms of how they can improve their workspaces and their work environment to ensure that we have decent work in the informal sector. So this is really what I'm looking at when I look at this this hub, and I'm hoping that it's going to bring in different conversations in depth, that will ensure that we come up with solutions that are oriented at creating that agency. So what I see is women agency being created in the informal sector, and because they are the majority, we should be seeing the solutions, and it's not only going to be the voice. So thank you very much, Viset. We hope and are looking forward as ZimCode to be participating and sharing and bringing the women informal traders in their different spaces that we work with as well within the coalition, to share their experiences, their knowledge, and the solutions or alternatives in terms of how to address some of these issues. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for a well-articulated, vote of confidence in this particular hub. Now, thank you so much, Pela, for coming through. You say, let's dig deeper and confront the root causes of the problems and work our way up, and that we should include the women informal players as much as possible in all the dialogues and other activity. The power of lived experiences cannot be overemphasized. Thank you so much. And to say well done on the launch. Yes, we are so excited about this launch. Over to you, Margaret.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be a part of this platform. I'm very happy, and I think this is an opportunity of a lifetime. We having to realize that women are disproportionately affected when we come to the informal economy, and coming to that realization and making an attempt to create a safe, convergent space for women in the informal economy. Congratulations, Viset. My hope is that it will be an information hub for females in the informal economy, but also that it will be an information repository where you will conduct researches to understand the underlying challenges that women in the informal economy are facing, that we all will make reference to as we also work with women in different different areas. And also, here's hoping that the output of this hub will then contribute to the mainstream conversation in our economy, will contribute to issues of the budget, will contribute to finance and economic development policing in the country. I'm excited that we are looking forward to working with you as we always have done, and we wish you the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret. Now I'm going to hand over to Rosemary Mudzamiri. She is the Viset Board Vice Chairperson, and she's going to give us she's going to officially launch the hub. Over to you, ma'am.
Ndinotendai ne-CEO hub launch. Saka, to round off our launch, sezvamanzwa maspeakers edu ose achitaura, tinotora matambudziko ose iwayo, maviews ose iwayo, then togadzira this document ratinofanirwa kuti tichisolva paregere kuva futi nezvinonetsa zvingarambe zvichikanganisa informal sector. Sezvatinoziva tose kuti kuguta kushanda, and then unofanirwa kushanda uine marights akanaka paunoshandira, and then unofanirwa kuita zvose zvaunoda kuita pabasa rako uine marights, asina munhu anouya achikuvhiringidza. Saka pfungwa dzose dzatataura, maspeakers ose ataura, tinoda kukutendai tichitora information yose yamataura togadzira document rinova ratichafamba naro tichibatsirana tichipfuurira mberi kuti Women's Hub launch yedu ive very, very successful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rosemary Mudzamiri. She is the Viset Board Vice Chairperson. They officially launching the hub. Hallelujah. We are so excited. I'm going to hand it over to the Executive Director for Viset, Samuel Wadzai, from where this hub is emerging from. Congratulations, Samuel. This is a wonderful initiative, and I know that with how informalized our economy is and how much women have continued to bear the brunt of selective application of the law, they are really going to appreciate this. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you so that you can speak to us. You only introduced yourself and you were listening in the background, but now we want to hear your own thoughts on what has been expressed by the women. And as we have officially launched the hub, what do you have to say and what are we going to look forward to? Over to you, Director.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know where to start from, Yvonne, but I think as always, I would like to thank this team. They are always there, you know, when we call them to come and be part of our processes. Janet, I thank you so much, as usual, my sister, for the support. Margaret, as usual, thank you so much, Comrade. I appreciate. Comrade Barbara, thank you so much for coming in there. Very important sector that you are representing, and we owe you a lot in terms of the information that you have shared with us. To my board deputy chairperson, thank you so much for putting it clear to the world out there that there are a lot of challenges that women in the informal economy are facing. Some of the challenges we may not be able to understand them, especially as men, as we are operating with our colleagues. We may not be able to really feel them, but I think you have tried to explain some of those important issues as they relate to health and reproductive health of our members. So yes, thank you so much, colleagues. I think this has been a successful conversation that we have had. But before I close, Yvonne, I just want to mention two things about the hub. Firstly, I think Janet and Margaret have already mentioned, this is going to be an information sharing platform for Viset's members and all the partners that we have been working with over the years that we've been in existence as an organization. We realized that we needed this hub because women are the majority in the informal economy, and we cannot continue to take their issues in the same way that we take them broadly in the informal economy. They are peculiar, they need to be tailor-made, and this is purely going to be the purpose of this hub. Then secondly, we need to share ideas. We need to share information. This is the opportunity for everyone who wants to work with players in the informal economy to come and support the women who have worked so hard to ensure that our economy continues to be standing. It's because of the hard work of our women that the economy is still standing. It's because of the hard work of our women that we are able to send our children to school. It's because of their hard work that we are even able to put food on the table. So the hub is coming to augment the efforts that our women have already been making over the years. And please, to all our partners, Zimcode, Margaret, Dev Zimbabwe Trust, to mention just but a few, everyone, please feel free to get in touch with us. There is already staff that is there to respond to your questions, to come in and make suggestions so that we make this hub the success that it should be. Otherwise, without saying much, Yvonne, I would like to thank you for holding this together and ensuring that we get all this the information that we want, and the discussion was flowing. And I want to thank everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this and also to contribute even through the chats. Thank you, Yvonne. Over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Samuel. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Rosemary, for coming through and sharing such important information with us. And I'm excited to be part of the launch of the Women's Hub. This is an exciting moment. It is an information sharing and ideas sharing platform. So please do feel free to come through and support the Vendors Initiative for Social and Economic Transformation as they venture out on this journey. Thank you so much to all of you for tuning in on Zimbabwe Daily as we brought this conversation. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of day, and do get in touch with us. Do get in touch through our WhatsApp numbers, and also Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you are watching from, and we'll connect you to Viset so that we can all begin to participate in the economic transformation of our country. Thank you so much, Zimbabwe. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of day. Thank you.